Hi, I'm Sister Simone Campbell. I'm the Executive Director of Network Lobby for Catholic Social Justice, and I have the honor of being leader of Nuns on the Bus. And today, our virtual bus has stopped in Indianapolis at the Kheprw Project, or in Kheprw Institute. I have to get that right. And I am really excited because we were here on the 2016 bus, and I'm really looking forward to hearing how things have evolved for the folks in Indianapolis. We weren't at the Kheprw Institute, we were in Indianapolis, but it's a great city, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about it. So let's invite in our guests. We have a wonderful selection of 4 folks from the Institute, but wait till you hear about all of the things their staff is involved in. You'll know there's even more behind them. So on the bottom of the screen, we have Paulette Fair and Mimi Zakim. And then up at top next to me, we have Russell Palmer. And down on the bottom, we have Diop. And we're so grateful that you're with us. Thank you so much. Well, since we've got a national audience, let's start with just a little bit about Indianapolis. Where is it? What's it like? What's the city like? And what kind of a feel do you have for it? So I don't know who wants to start us off. Maybe Paulette will start with the senior member of the firm and let you talk a little bit about your city, and then we'll let the others join in. How's that?
It sounds really appropriate since I've lived here the longest.
All right, go for it. I love it.
By far.
I came in 1979, and I came here by way of a job. My husband had this wonderful job with this company, and they wanted him to be the national sales manager, and the company was here. At the time, I lived in another city that was really going places and doing things, and I was so active in the city. So when my husband said he was taking the job, I couldn't believe it. I said, what? I said, where is this place? What is it called again? And so when we moved here, I was on zero. I want you to know, in the years that I've been here since 1979, I am a Hoosier. Now, a Hoosier is a word that we colloquially call ourselves. Over in Ohio, they call themselves Buckeyes because it's the university's little mascot. Over in Illinois, they call themselves Alanis. You know, people, but I'm a Hoosier. So here I am, a transplant, and I've grown so beautifully because of the community that I'm in.
Wow.
When I moved here in 1979, I moved from a village. It really was. I lived in Detroit for about 17 years at that time, and I went there for university. But when I went to Wayne State University, it was easy to develop a community there because the gentleman I married had a strong family of 6 sisters. So when I moved from a village, I mean, they were right there for me at all times. Southern girls, all from New Orleans. So when I moved here, not knowing anyone and anybody, I just want you to know, I came to Indianapolis starting at 0 culturally, 0. Maybe it was even -0. But I moved here with children, a 15-year-old and an 8-year-old, and I could not, and 2 8-year-olds, and I could not allow them to come to some place that they were going to be for a while with a negative attitude. So we immediately jumped into what's going on in Indianapolis and how can I find this community to place them in, to give them the strong legs to know that they are always going to be safe. There's always going to be somebody around them. And with that, we did a lot of programs, and I searched and found that group. And when you say, Paulette, what do you think about Indianapolis? It was back in 1979. It was different. Indianapolis has put in a lot of new projects, like this wonderful zoo. When I moved here from Detroit, which had a fabulous national zoo, I came here and this place had a petting zoo out at Washington Park. That's the biggest animal over there, I think, was a goat. I mean, this place is really grown. When I moved here, we didn't even have a place for theatrical performances to come. When things came off of Broadway, they had to go out to Butler University, and Butler University's Clues Hall would put the performances off the stage because they needed it. Right now, we have those places. We had a repertoire theater, but our Circle City downtown was closed. It's now open. So I'm just saying, for me, I certainly found that place, and because I found the community in which to grow, to support, they supported me back. Now, outside of that community, there have been a lot of challenges in the general governmental structure. This place is Unigov, so the outside...
It's what?
It's called Unigov.
Oh, Unigov. Oh, okay.
Unigov. And so our city is very, very large acreage because all of the townships get to say what the center city of Indianapolis.
Oh.
So they have a political say. And so things are constantly there for activists to work toward trying to improve the city for our citizens. And I'm in a community that takes that seriously. And we really work hard, but there are some issues and many of them come around. We don't have home rule for many things in our city.
Okay. Let me get this straight because my people backstage are saying they're Unigov. Okay, let me understand, and maybe we can bring in a couple other voices on how this works. So, in your city, you have a lot of other towns around who get to control what the city does?
Yeah, so Unigov made the city the same limits as the county. Extended it out.
Without consolidating the towns into the city.
They were townships. They were townships all the way around the city. And now people who don't even live in what used to be Indianapolis before Unigov get to vote on all the issues that affect everybody. And so, you know, I didn't want to belabor the point, but what I was trying to point to is that one, I'm a Hoosier. I love this place. Number two, the issues that we have to deal with come out of the activism is not just about what's going on in the city. The activism is addressing the state legislature. The state legislature is all Republican, House and Senate. The governor is Republican. So I'm just saying there's much work to do here in Indianapolis to make it the place that the people who live in the city where I live makes it better. So
okay, that sets the scene. That sets the scene. So we've got a city, we have a state capital, we have activists engaged, and we have the needs of the people, which may not be seen by the suburban towns. Do I have it right? All right, got it. Okay, in that context, and everybody knows where Indiana is, and Hoosiers, we gotcha. Okay, got that. So now let's begin talking about the Kheprw Institute and what is your work? What's your history? How do you intersect in this complex, big entity? How are you engaged? And I don't know if maybe Rasul or Diop or maybe you want to get started so that we'll give Paulette a little rest. I know she's history, but you guys talk about the reality.
Yeah, I could speak on that. The Kheprw Institute is a not-for-profit community organization that has been operating within Indianapolis for over 16 years. And we have a mantra, which is a saying, community empowerment through self-mastery, where we empower community members.
Excuse me, Russell. Can you say it one more time? Because that's really important.
Our mantra is community empowerment through self-mastery.
Wow. Okay. Thank you.
Which is the philosophy that we can empower our communities to become stronger and more self-reliant by empowering and by the community members becoming more empowered and self-mastering different skills and self. We help empower our community members through our myriad of different social programs and enterprises through a youth lens. So we've mainly focused on working with developing and mentoring young people, which is relative depending who you're talking to, who's young. So for me, that's probably working.
Yeah, for Paulette and me, it's going to be a lot bigger than for you.
For Paulette, she considers our 60-year-olds young. For me, I consider our 15-year-olds young. That's the definition. But a constant chain of mentorship. And we do that through our media programs. For example, one program I am managing is DOD, which is an acronym for Democratizing Our Data.
Ooh.
It's a new initiative that was started last year where we're trying to build intergenerational infrastructure in the fields of data analysis and data science to help grassroots organizations utilize data for policy and for public policy and social advocacy programs.
Okay.
You guys want questions?
Can you help? Okay, try it again. So it's intergenerational. So it means you've got folks that Paulette and I would think were young, as well as folks that you would think were young.
You got it.
Working together in getting data, in sharing data.
Yeah, just the multiple things involved in the field of data science. So like research, gathering data, doing surveys, making programs, to learn about data, doing reports, just the different facets involved in that. For example, right now we're teaching high schoolers, a group of 5 high schoolers, a programming language called R, which is the main program used in the field of data science to do statistical analysis.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So that is both practical and career opportunities.
Precisely, yes. And what does this matter for your work? The reason this matters for our work is that this program is focused on, we at the Kheprw Institute discovered that like recently that it's becoming very popular that a lot of businesses and institutions are utilizing vast amounts of data to make public decisions and program decisions and legitimizing their programs through that data. And so we believe that the person that controls the data controls the narrative of the communities they got the data from. So it's currently a trend for a lot of external institutions like universities or other businesses to come in the community, get data, and leave, and really not provide any form of benefit towards our communities for a long time, if at all. So we thought it would be prudent to build an infrastructure and skill in that data field so we have, like our word, sovereignty over who has access to our data. That is considered a value.
Wow. That is really important because, I mean, we're a national organization. We depend on data every day. I totally get it. Yeah.
And that's just one of our programs. I can pass it on to Mimi or Dia to talk to other data programs they're involved in Kheprw.
Okay, great. Thanks, Rasul. Diop, do you want to get in on what you're working on?
Yes. So you asked specifically about the artist in residency piece, so I'll speak to that. So one of the things that Kheprw has integrated, I would say probably the last 3 or 4 years, is placing a focus on how art helps community shape and bend and create future. And also, similar to what Rasul spoke about, is the control of narrative. So data controls narrative, and so does art. It being able to depict oneself empowers narrative and creates the possibility for futures to see themselves in positive lights and then make that come a reality. So we wanted to make sure that we had something in place that contributed to that vein. And that's why we created the artist in residency position. And right now, Mariah Ivy is our artist in residency, and she's a poet, an MC, a singer, an event organizer, an activist. I mean, it's a long list. And she's relatively young. She's in college studying Afro studies and philosophy. So she's a trailblazer in her own right, and she has a vibration that just really molded in with our philosophy and has contributed a lot to the space. So that's the artist and residency piece. And while I'm still in the art piece, I'll talk about another project we have. It's called Cafe Creative. And Cafe Creative fundamentally is about the importance of artists being able to own their own platform, whether that be digital or physical. Indianapolis is not on the coast, so a lot of resources and appreciation for art that cities on the coast experience has not been commonplace here. So we have a lot of phenomenal artists, but a lot of times we can feel like we are hunting in the desert. And while that can definitely create a lot of resiliency and test your commitment to your art, it also can create a lot of frustration. So one of the ways to address that frustration is to use institutions that are communally controlled and influenced to create those platforms that artists can access and leverage. And that's what we're doing with Cafe Creative. We want artists to be able to create together without feeling as if their art is being watched or is going to quickly become a commodity just for the sake of expression. And through true expression, community is able to heal and see itself. So that's Cafe Creative, and that's two of the programs I'm involved in. I'll mention a third. The other one is called the Alchemy Incubator. So Kheprw, from its inception, it is a nonprofit, but from the beginning, we've always been about self-determination, and the co-founders have been entrepreneurs. So we wanted to make sure that that was in the culture of the organization. So we ran social enterprises forever. And when we say social enterprise, fundamentally, anything we do is about humans. It's about people, the development of people. I'm helping people grow. And entrepreneurship is a vehicle to do that, but also creating an independent economic engine. A lot of communities of color do not have that.
Right.
So if you don't have that, then sometimes you find organizations or even brilliant people in financial shackles because they can't speak or implement the visions they have because they have to provide a return on a dollar to someone else's narrative, someone else's viewpoint. So when you're able to create opportunities for self, then you have no limitations on what those opportunities look like. And we wanted to model that, so much so that others in the environment want to know, how do we do that? You know, you've been able to do that for 17 plus years. Please show us, please teach us.
Yes.
So the incubator is grounded in providing entrepreneurs, institutions, and communities a framework to build community wealth. And one of those tools is entrepreneurship.
Wow. So in the entrepreneurship program, I don't know if Diop, if you're the best one to answer at this point, but I'm curious. So you help people develop those entrepreneurial skills, like creating a business model, making it work, figuring out costs and profitability, marketing, those kinds of things. Is that what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely help them with the I would call it the bones, the bare bones of business. But we also are trying to create a specific vantage point around entrepreneurship, which is tied to building community wealth. If you create an entity, how does this entity support, strengthen, and empower community? That's what we're interested in. You know, it's okay for people to create a business that makes profit, but our profit is defined on the strength and the health of community, which is people-centered. And that's the type of entrepreneurship we're focused on because we feel that that's imperative during this paradigm shift.
Well, you know, I totally agree. And I think our viewers would be really interested in hearing, can you give us an example of community, of a entrepreneurial program that gives community benefit?
Absolutely.
And Paulette wants in on this, or Mimi, or anybody else.
Yeah,
leap in.
The example I give is CCFI, and Mimi can tell you all about that.
Oh, you're passing it over. Okay, we're heading all over your side there, Paulette. So
I would be happy to. Before I do, though, real quick, y'all, can you shout out Maurice and say a little bit about the Afrofuturism?
I'll pass that to Rasul.
Good move.
Okay, viewers, notice collaboration, mutual support, building community right here among the team. I love it. Fabulous. Good work. Okay, Rosie, you're on.
Yeah, as Dia mentioned, how art controls narrative. One of our programs. It's called Afrofuturism. We have partnered with Maurice Broadus, one of another member of the Kheprw Institute, co-facilitate this week bi-weekly Friday event called Afrofuture Fridays, where we discuss materials that speak about the Black narrative and speculative futures of Black people in America and abroad through different mediums such as movies, books, music, visual art, and etc. And Maurice Broadus is a well-known author of Black speculative fiction, science fiction, and he's an award-winning author who's wrote 100 different short stories and have three or four best-selling books out right now.
What a resource! How fabulous! Oh, that's great. Okay, now Mimi, I think we want to get you engaged in this entrepreneurial work. What are you up to?
Yeah, sure. So I got involved with Kheprw in 2015 through our food work. And I'm going to speak to it through the lens of three really big themes. So Kheprw, we talk about the art of the start, which is start where you are now with what you already have. And we talk about social capital and the importance of relationships and how that's actually like the primary thing that's really going to support your vision and whatever you can bring into being. And then how we use the social enterprise as a tool to meet community needs and develop leadership as well as resources and opportunities in the community. So when I came here in 2015, the grocery stores had just closed, the double eights that were throughout the inner city. And Kheprw was putting on a community conversation about, how are people feeling and what do people want to do? So it was there that we started the community-controlled food initiative to provide our community with fresh produce directly from farmers in our community and to do it in a cooperative model that allowed us to control how it's run, provide different price options to make it affordable, SNAP, EBT, etc. So none of us had done that before. We started with no funding. We just said, this is something that's important. We had a group of people that was committed to make it happen. So we just started reaching out to farmers, and literally that day we built the Community Control Food Initiative kind of commitment and outline. And then we started community gatherings, and within 6 months, we launched our cooperative food distributions with a network of farmers and community food purchasers. So we've been doing that since 2015, and the pandemic just about tripled our project. And I'll say the whole thing, again, was just something that we built from the ground up, primarily just through relationships and the people that wanted to make it happen, the people who wanted to be a part of it, support it, the food growers, the volunteers. And then I became the project coordinator. I was just like a volunteer that agreed to take notes, but cautiously. And as we said, Kheprw is about the youth leadership. So, and I did want to see it happen. And so, Mrs. Fair and others here were just like, come on, baby, you can. So, then it's been 5 years I've been managing this program. I can't believe it. And I'll tell you, the skills that I gained from it is just invaluable. But, now, I understand how to build and grow something from,
with old people and the young people.
Yes. I mean, our team is intergenerational. I manage a business operation and food. That's a hard field to work in as far as margins.
Okay, wait a minute, Mimi.
Yes.
Explain to our viewers margins.
Oh man, so it's basically your income minus your expenses. Is really the profit that you're left with, and your margin is that difference on each unit that you sell. So, like for example, a grocery store, their margins is like 1 to 3%. So every dollar of food that they sell out of their store, they make 1 penny to 3 pennies.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it's a difficult industry, and you can see a lot of it actually, even pre-pandemic, was collapsing nationally. But the advantage of a cooperative model is when we work together, we support each other and we problem solve with a variety of perspectives. And then we're also able to purchase wholesale, have direct relationships with our vendors and our consumers. And then we don't really have overhead because we have the institutional support of Kheprw. So we operate out of Kheprw properties or partners. So, with the pandemic, the church across the street let us use their lot, just very relationship based. And that allows us to be able to afford to purchase the food, make it affordable, cover our costs, and even over time be able to support paying folks to help with the project. Like we put on an annual festival pre-pandemic where, we would pay artists, chefs, all kinds of things, just doing that, spreading, wealth. And actually, I don't have much time. I know that we have limited time. I want to make sure that we have Mrs. Fair speak more to community wealth building and just kind of this moment that we find ourselves in. So I'm going to do another pass.
You are the best. You don't need me. You just keep passing it around. I love it. Okay.
But we like you. Please stay.
Yes, we like you. Please stay. But I think what happens is, as you hear, I just wanted to inject this piece about community wealth building. That's the umbrella. That's the umbrella. People will look at our website and say, "Oh, you all do so many different things." And then I have to think, and I said, well, it's like a jazz band. And, if you appreciate jazz, somebody's over here playing a horn and then somebody's playing a piano and you're saying, what's going on? What's going on? But if you listen really carefully, all those instruments have a thread. And when you're listening to jazz, if you will listen to Miles Davis and hear the thread, or Wes Montgomery and hear the thread, then you see how it all comes together. And so for community wealth build, that's the umbrella. If the project is about, as Diop mentioned, even when we try to help, I feel like we're not trying to help. We are helping entrepreneurs, because one of the first things we do in all of our entrepreneurial incubator and accelerator programs is we speak to community wealth building. What part of your business is about the community that you're in, the jobs that you have for them, the resources, period, that you have, that you share? How will the community be better because of your enterprise?
Yeah.
We want you to make $100 million, $1 trillion, whatever you want to make. But up first is, how is the community better? What have you provided for the community? And so we have even some projects that we haven't mentioned that you might find on the website. And when you look at them, you look at them through, is this about community wealth building? Because we have. And we still, as an organization, we are an organization of young people with some seniors in it. But this is an organization, because our mission statement started out with youth development. And as we are looking at that youth development, as we are saying with community wealth building in doing youth development, or anybody else who comes in, if indeed we can tie people to the community that they're in, and the community is not just about a neighborhood, a community is the whole area that you stay in. There are people at Kheprw, in our Kheprw organization, that don't even live in the city, but they care about what we're doing. And so a couple of them are on our board. We have a couple of other ones that's on some of the committees, because everything is Zoom these days anyway. And
True.
so community wealth building, when you help people to know what you're doing, it's about you. But just like in any family, it's about the people that you live with, in, and around. So community wealth building has got to be a focus. And so this is what we do, even in our entrepreneurial program. I'll say this one last thing. I know I was sitting in on one of the workshops. And so during the curriculum, they were talking about presenting to the cohort of entrepreneurs in sessions. what do you think about what you're doing and how that relates to community? And at the end of the session, this young woman says, I so appreciate this perspective. She says, for the last 5 or 6 years, I've been thinking about this business and what I want in the business and what I'm going to do with the business. What I'm going to have for the business. She said, but now I get it. I can't have a business without people who will come to the business. I can't have a business without people who are going to work in the business and care about the business. She said, I've got to start thinking about how is it that my business is about the people that the business will serve. And so, that made me feel really wonderful because that mantra of community wealth built is that umbrella that says, I matter and you matter.
Amen. Amen. And it's often missing in the business analysis. So this is pioneering work. It's really, really important. Well, a couple of questions have come up in the chat in our broadcast, and I'm curious about. First of all, the question came: do you do outreach or serve people with disabilities of different kinds? Is that a focus or just part of your mission, or does it not exist?
That's a great question. I'll say that, in the disability community, you have to, take certain measures to make sure that what you're doing is accessible. I would say in general, we try to make our space one where everybody that comes to us, we look at what are your passions, what are your talents, and what are your interests, and where do you best fit. So we're very open, adaptable. We don't do a lot of reach out marketing work. I would say on the whole, we remain accessible, and it's kind of our approach is, who comes out to participate and how do we make space for you to be the best that you can be within our work. And what's interesting, our executive director a few years back came down with some eye challenges and has been visually impaired for years. And we, just kind of roll with it of what do you need to be the best you and be supported in the work. And, so Mrs. Fair took on his email reading and, we just accommodate as we go. So I would say anybody that, resonates with our work and wants to get involved, please reach out and know that we're committed to making a space for people who are passionate and want to get involved.
Oh, that's great. I love to hear that. And yeah, go ahead.
The only thing I would add is that, when you're working in the Black community, a community of color, people have a lot of challenges. Some of them may not be physical. Some of them, are mental or metaphysical. So I think, our work, we practice listening, understanding, and try to have behaviors that are healing. And I think that's one of the things that separates our space from a lot of others, because we start at acceptance and we end at acceptance.
Oh, I think that's critical.
I just wanted to say that.
And also, I would guess that the work in art that you were talking about also really allows the individual to flourish or to see themselves reflected in that. And I would get, do you want to say a bit more about how art is part of this social wealth building or communal wealth building?
Yeah, I can talk about, I'll talk about a personal example. So I'm an artist, and I, about 2 years ago, this month, I put out a project called Still Shining. And for me, that project was one to help me heal from a traumatic or shamatic experience. But then also while I was doing it, I wanted to incorporate my relationship of artists to take part in that, and as well as provide their perspective on how art has allowed them to heal from trauma. And then so we created an album, and then we created a short documentary to make explicit the idea of art healing trauma. And then we had a premiere so that then the community can have access to that process therefore making it a moment for community to be vulnerable, for community to express on the relationship of art, but more so the relationship of being public with your vulnerability so that you can receive assistance and healing. So that's one example. And we plan to implement more of that type of synergy between art and community healing.
Wow. Wow. How powerful and how necessary in this time of hyper individualism that people can't come together for healing. That is, thank you for lifting that up, Diep. I really appreciate it. Okay. Mimi, you mentioned that your life's gotten harder with COVID, and all of you are about communal wealth and communal engagement, communal support, communal meetings, communal this. How are you dealing with COVID? How's that impacted you all? I mean, in some ways, I find COVID traumatic just in and of itself.
Yeah.
I'm curious with your wonderful focus on community and your capacity to pass things back and forth to each other and affirm each other. How are you dealing in this time of COVID? How's it impacted your work?
Hoo-wee. Yeah, it is an incredibly crazy time with COVID, directly with climate change, with the economic situation related to the pandemic, and also the racial rebellion, reemergence of that very, very prominent in America. And I would say with all of that, community has been everything to support through it. We are still pretty much on like a lockdown in our COVID bubble because we're taking it, very seriously, the responsibility to, be safe, to slow the spread, and also in our own bubble, just to protect the health, especially of the elders in our circle. So we have been spending so much time together in each other's faces every day for the last month, because we also do cooperative housing. So many of us share living.
Oh.
And we still love each other. That is amazing. And, so one thing has been, I would say, forcing us to increase our level of acceptance and understanding of each other, because there's so much stress in this moment and we have no space from each other. And that has meant that to get through that and all of the stresses and tensions that come through that, we've had to practice like loving each other better and, communicating better. So just within our circle, it's been transformational in that way. And I would say also like for the young people also to lean on our elders. And I know Mrs. Fair can speak a lot more to this moment in time, but just having people who've lived a lot longer who can help you put things in perspective and just have practiced so many years of resilience is really, really a crucial support. And then I would say externally, when with so many of these systems collapsing, often ones that did not serve our community anyways, and you have a group of people where what we do every day is built on our passion, our dedication, the skills that we've gained, the relationships we have, that doesn't stop when the pandemic hit and things shut down. It actually just got, I would say, bigger and louder. It's been a very strange experience to have a lot of growth in our space because what I think we can offer transcends a lot of the challenges of the moment in ways that a lot of systems that aren't built around relationships, agency, these sorts of things have a hard time rising to the occasion. Yeah. So I think when you have a group of people that do that and others see that, it actually is made our work even more attractive and visible. Yeah. And then I'll just say directly in the food work, we had farmers when the market shut down, they didn't know what they were going to do. So we became a crucial lifeline for them. And we adapted and figured out how to do all of our programs, no contact, etc. And then just continue to be providing food and community that was also an alternative to the grocery store. So in a lot of ways, I think we've set up some models that can show other people, again, the art of the start and how you really don't need, $1 million or thesis to get out here and figure out what is needed in my community, who can I work with, and how can we build it right now where we are with what we already have access to.
So Mimi, what I'm hearing in the approach is responding to need, to the actual communal need. And I'm guessing from what you said earlier that with COVID that there's an increased need for food. And so you've had an increased demand for your service. Is that the situation that you're saying? And can you talk a little bit about how you use SNAP benefits? There's a curiosity in the chat about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the food system nationally is very broken. I know Senator Cory Booker gave a really good talk about it at the National Food, I think it was a Food and Agriculture Conference. But if you look up his speech, I mean, he just, with such eloquent words, laid out, this system is very broken. So I would say with that, I don't expect the Community Controlled Food Initiative to address the crazy amount of need for food in the community. But what we have been able to do was we tripled in order size from March to April.
Wow. Wow. In 1 month, you went.
Yeah. So we were averaging about like 50 orders through our co-op, and we went to about 165. And a lot of that was through partnerships. So we worked with the Foster Grandparents Program, the Marion County Coalition on Youth, some other folks who wanted to be able to provide food support to folks in their community, and they knew about us. So boom. So yeah, the demand is huge. And I'm glad that we've been able to, have a team to be able to adapt and still provide our services and work with farmers and make the food accessible. And in a big picture, I just hope that it's something that other people can look to say, oh, this is something that I could do.
And I just wanted to add that when we first started the program, first thing that we thought of, this needs to be local. We're going to use a local farmer. And what about the people who can't always come and pay up front to help us buy from the farmers? And so we initiated being SNAP ready, or whatever the cards are called.
Right.
For that.
Right. Yeah.
So that
electronic benefit card. Yeah.
Right, the electronic benefits. And so we started that from the very, very beginning.
Yeah.
And in fact, 5 years ago, the government had something called SNAP benefits. And so the government would even pay for half of fresh produce. And so our $20 bag of produce that has like somewhere around 10 plus or minus items in it from the local farmers and urban farmers, it costs $7.50 to somebody with a SNAP card.
Right.
Wow.
And they put in an order through our website, and then they come and pay with their SNAP EBT, which is like the food stamp benefits at the time that we give the food. We have folks in the community who sponsor being able to offer it at a reduced price. The full priced bags also help to supplement the cost. And then actually since the pandemic, we have had dozens of community members making donations every month. And so far we've been able to do all of our SNAP EBT purchases as donations when they come and pick up on that day, and just to like see people's excitement and how much it means to them. And then
don't bring your card out, just keep your card in your wallet.
And we've had so many donations. We actually started partnering with the Crown Hill Neighborhood Association here, and they distribute bags to seniors in the community in need of produce.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fabulous. Okay, so we're seeing how community multiplies when it's community connected. That's really great. And they wanted me to point out that today is World Food Day. So we're talking about this just at the right time. This is perfect. I'm wondering, Russell, in your entrepreneurial work, I'm wondering, how has COVID-19 impacted you with that? because I'm sure the social distancing and all this other stuff must make it a little bit of a challenge, is it?
In my entrepreneurial work,
Well, in the work that you're doing, how are you? I mean, you were talking to us about the entrepreneurial approach and all this and making it community benefit. How has your work been impacted by the COVID-19?
speaking of well, about the I'm trying to answer this.
Oh, I'm sorry. I threw you a curve. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I just
Yeah,
wanted to get in the conversation.
basically, following the same trend, a lot of other businesses, everything's virtual. Anything that could be put on remotely through Zoom or any other online platform has been put on through that platform. Meetings, project management, events has all been routed to different programs that can be done remotely.
So your participants have been able then to adjust and to learn their data stuff, doing it remote.
Yeah. Since a lot of our work is evolved working through computers as it is, yes, it was an easy transition to online training and research.
Oh, that's good. I wonder, do you have more demand for the work since everybody's virtual nowadays, or?
We're getting a lot more people interested in the work. Dare I say, since really essentially moving online opened us up to a lot more people per se joining on our events and whatnot. Since the issue of like travel and location wasn't no longer a problem for them.
Yeah.
So a lot more interest, particularly people already in the data field are interested in participating in the work.
Oh, that's great. That's really fabulous. And I know for us, we're doing this virtual bus trip. Usually we have a physical bus, but we've been able to go so many more places and have so many more people involved that it's good news. My hunch is your community is going to grow bigger than your neighborhood.
It's not a hunch. It's not a hunch over here.
Oh, really? It's reality?
It's reality.
That's great. At least I hope that's great. It sounds good.
It's fantastic.
Okay. Good deal.
Well, that answer your question.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so you all mentioned, or I think Mimi lifted up the issue of racial justice and Black Lives Matter and the important work that's being done now to address the long-term systemic racism that has been both overt and hidden in our nation. And I'm curious, in developing your community wealth, how have you been able to engage this really critical issue, break it open, find new models, find ways of conversation and engagement? How is that working for you all? It's such an important question for our nation at this moment, I think. And anybody can hop in, it's wide open.
Well, I'll go first. And just so you know, my camera on my phone is the only camera that I have that works, and my phone's about to die, so hopefully it doesn't die while I say this. So one of the things that Kheprw has always done, and we continue to do, is make space for hard conversations for the public and hard conversations internally. And that's just something that has to continue to happen, because if you can't bring differing or diverging perspectives together, you can't really get at the root of it. And you have to have that creative tension to actually come up with possible solutions that haven't been implemented previously. So that's one thing I'll say. Also, I'll say that Kheprw's approach to uplifting communities of color, primarily Black communities, because that's what we're rooted in, has been grounded in our philosophy of institution building. Communities of color have to be able to leverage their own definitions of justice, their own resources, their own desired future state. And in order to do that, you have to have the power of institutions that look and feel like you and that have your agenda. So it's important for us to continue building, as well as to encourage other young people, other people in general, to build institutions that have their best interests at heart, and then learn how to co-create and collaborate amongst themselves. So I just add that quick piece.
Well, Diop, can I just do a quick follow-up with that? Because you say that it's a culture willing to have the hard conversations, which I totally agree with. I'm wondering, what do you support? What do you do? How do you help support that willingness? What makes a difference for you in supporting coming into a hard conversation?
Yeah, so I think, well, one of the, and I don't know if there's an easiest way, but one of the easier approaches, I believe, is you try to develop that ability in young people. You want young people to be able to not fear confrontation, or even if they fear it, they know the values of it. They know that it can be transformative. So they can turn that light switch on and have those conversations with individuals that may look like them and disagree with them, may not look like them and disagree with them, and then learn to work through that process, because conflict can quickly and easily become emotional. So how do you use all of that? Because all of that is information. All of that is knowledge. All of that is purity. To feel something is real, but the interpretation of that feeling, how you express that feeling, how those feelings connect to each other is the challenge that we have to address and figure out how to do more fluidly, more openly, and more vulnerable. So I think the best approach is to start with young people. And you don't do that with just young people. You have to do that in an intergenerational context, so the young people can see some of the perspectives they may have already been had and tried, or maybe a brand new perspective and can be seasoned by seasoned perspectives.
Well, and I just want to say, Diop, so we don't lose you, I want to say how your art shows through in your poetry and insight and clarity. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
You may not think of yourself as the verbal artist. I don't know how you define your art, but I certainly see that.
I appreciate it, and I'm primarily here today because that's how my team views one of my strengths.
And they are right. From the outside world. Oh, that's great. That's good. Thank you so much. Okay.
Yes, indeed. If I could real quick, I just want to add one more point on that too. I think an important thing we do is actually intentionally invite in people that we disagree with to have conversations and be able to connect with each other's humanity and clarify our perspectives.
And I'd like to also add that we put in processes and procedures for this. We start our staff meetings off, weekly staff meetings with conflict and transformation, not to resolve it, just to transform it from conflict to at least talking about it. That's one thing. And then for the general public, every Friday from 3 to 4:30, we have a webinar about something that's of importance in the community. And because we've got these youngsters who can do all this electronic stuff, we do this Zoom thing, and then they have people who can join in and give their opinions, and it's an open conversation. In fact, some of them we call mumbo jumbo. Just come in and talk about it.
I love it. I love it. That's great.
Give people that opportunity to voice how they feel and to incorporate that in what you're thinking. You know, if you're a community engagement, how do you engage the community? And if you engage them, are you engaging them to tell them what you think, what you got to give them? Or are you asking them about how are you? What's going on with you? How are you getting on? And providing a space for that.
Yeah. Well, as you were saying that, Paulette, I was thinking that, I'm a Catholic sister, and in my tradition, Pope Francis just issued a letter to the world where he called on all of us to be listeners and to engage in encounter and dialogue, so that we hear the truth of each other's stories that so often gets left out, which is what I hear you really lifting up, the importance of knowing that, knowing each other's lived experience and caring about it, knowing that I'm cared about in it too. Okay, I can't believe it. The hour is almost over. Oh, good grief. There's so much more to learn. But what I'd like to close with is asking each of you, okay, we have a national audience. We have people all over. Heaven knows where. It's going to go up on our website. People are going to watch it later. You're now part of Nuns on the Bus. You are on the bus. So the thing that I want to ask is, of all the things that you know from your lives, from Kheprw, from the work that you do, from this challenging time we're in, both physically, with COVID, with racial justice, with the election coming up, all these challenges we're facing. Well, what do you want to say to the community watching? What would be your message to them? And I'll just let you, whoever wants to start.
I'll go. I would say that this is definitely challenging times, but it's also, from my limited experience, a moment where extreme change is possible. So my challenge to everyone is, what desired future state do you have? And what are you prepared to do to create that desired future state? Because now that possibility is extremely tangible.
Wow. Thank you, Dia. Who else?
You mean?
Yeah, I can go next. I mean, mine is really similar. You know, I think out of a lot of people experience in their life, their greatest challenge is also their greatest opportunity for growth. It just depends on how you respond to it, which is in your hands. So embrace all of the depth of this challenge as an amazing depth for your own growth. And, you know, make it tangible, make you a list. You know, I want to be more kind to the people that I love. I'm going to write that down. I'm going to say, this is how I'm going to work on it. Every day I'm going to say something encouraging. Make this list. I'm going to put it on my door so I see it every morning and every night, so I can say, did I do these things to work on myself in these areas that I would like to improve, so that I can be in the world the way that fits, you know, my best vision for myself and the people I love.
Wow. What a great communal response.
Rasul, you want to add something, babe?
I'm kind of lost here. I guess what I have to say at all is to just try your best to take everything day by day. It's gonna be made it this far into the year. Let's try our best to make it to the next year.
One day at a time. I hear you in that one. Holy moly. Okay, Paulette, foundress.
I really, yeah, you know, you and I, we've had ourselves some lived experiences. We have just had ourselves some lived experiences. You know, I was in college in the 60s and the 70s, well, in the late 60s, and I lived in Detroit during the race riots and the civil rights and the feminist movement. And now here I am. And it's so exciting, because it's not a tweak here and a tweak there in all of the world that we live in. The pandemic laid us bare because of the economic challenges. The racial pieces came up and got uplifted. Now we can do the things that we talked about. We can build those things. And therein is the crux. So many people aren't used to building what they would like. They're just used to complaining about what isn't. They don't have to worry about complaining about what isn't. It's gone. It's over. So now let's get onto it. Predatory capitalism is just falling around us. And we have to make sure that the pieces that get picked up aren't those, but what shall be picked up. Let us build. Let us build. Young people, old people, what is it you would like to see? Let us build.
Amen. We're all in on that. Let us build. Let us build. Let us not pick up those pieces of predatory capitalism. Let's build a new nation. Let's make it happen with entrepreneurship, owning our own data, making sure everybody's fed, and bringing us together for these hard conversations. And making sure at the heart of it is an artistic expression that opens the mind. How critical. Thank you, Kheprw. What a fabulous, fabulous visit it's been. I'm so grateful for your time, and thank you for being part of our bus stop here in Indianapolis. Good luck to you all. Keep up the great work. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
You too.
Thank you.
I got you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.